I'm sitting here with Henrique Avancini, Brazilian mountain bike star, former world number one, former world champion, right at the end of your career, where you decided to stop, which we'll come to. But before we talk about why we're here today, why you're here at Factor, I think it's really important and really interesting to go back to the beginning, because how you got here is one of the most inspiring stories that I've heard in cycling, and I think it says so much about your character and why we're here today and what you're wanting to do. So I know you've spoken about this a lot before, and I guess quite a lot of people know about it, but I think it's really puts it all in context if we start right at the beginning and we go back to that very first bike, because that kind of puts the first brushes in this big painting.
Yeah, I was going a long way backwards. I started riding a proper mountain bike and racing in 1997. My father had a small bike shop that he opened around 1996. And one of the customers drove into his garage with the bike on the roof, cracked the frame in the middle, and left the frame as a leftover for the bike shop. And that's how my first bike was born, and how I started like getting into the sport. And I was so interested about everything that I had the chance to touch. Like I knew from the first to last page every catalog that I had the chance to touch. I was reading over and over. I knew every spec of every model of the catalogs, the bike catalogs, and I knew the results of the races that would come out on a bike magazine. And by the time I come from a very humble family, financially speaking, and I didn't have access to much, but as you know, the cycling community was by the time, from time to time, one of the customers' friends would come and leave like some VHS with racing footage or mountain bike footage and stuff like that. So that's how my passion and interest for cycling was growing. I always had like to dig really deep to learn about the sport. The access to info was really limited by the time to me, and that's how I started. And at some point, you know, like I started to be very interested about racing and chasing a career, but that was too much of a unachievable dream, because I didn't have like the role models by the time. When I look at to the national champions, it's not like they were very stable professionally. So the sport wasn't big enough in the country. So it was really hard to feel it as a possibility. So that was the main challenge during the early days.
It must have. I think there's a couple of things that I find really interesting. Is the fact that you were it must have been such a weird thing for a kid in Brazil to be so passionate about bikes.
I was so lonely.
Because I can imagine you as this little kid, like 8-year-old, 9-year-old, who's just become a total geek on bike catalogs. and not even having role models. You know, it's like kind of why are you into it? But then you went to race. Your dad took you some races, and you were just on this flat pedal bike competing against kids with all the gear.
Yeah.
And yet you kind of you persevered. Yeah. What was it that kind of what fed it?
There are a few things that I can't really explain. You know, when people, like, oftentimes they would ask me why I choose racing a bike, and it wasn't actually my choice. It's one of those things that you do and you feel different from any other thing that you do in your life. So it's more like a soul connection to doing that. So I don't know, somehow I always felt I had to chase that. That was something like pulling me towards that direction. And but it was very hard as a young kid, especially because I had the feeling that I wanted to help my family. And my family, my mom and dad, they gave like great education to me and my sister, but we had like very limited resources. So I always had the desire above anything else to change my family's situation. But my heart wanted to race a bike. But when I thought about like racing a bike, I mean, it was maybe better to have like a regular job. Even if it was like a simple job, like, I don't know, working on a supermarket, on a petrol station, something like that. And when I got older and older, as I got older and older, the sport gave me some opportunities, like to go to a better school, to travel overseas the first time, and little by little, like some doors were opening for a better life, but not through the sport, because during the time, the only thing I could target was come to Europe, because everyone was saying, "Oh, the sport is in Europe." Like, if you find a way to go to Europe, and then everything is going to change. So, but it was hard because I didn't have like many chances to race overseas. And when I was flying away, like my first world champs was in New Zealand. Then the second world champs as a junior was in Scotland. And I remember like I flew on my own. I slept on the train station for 2 nights. So I mean, everything was so hard, you know. Like, I went to the race with no feed and tech assistance. So, and I still had like to somehow catch the attention to maybe get a chance. And yeah, that was super hard, because every time I had maybe a one shot per year to show and to prove myself. The circumstances were very challenging, and the pressure that I felt for myself, you know, like if I don't maybe win a medal at the World Champs, nobody's gonna look to me. So,
but this is what I find so inspiring, because I see a lot of young guys coming to Drona now, let's say, because that's become where people come to live their dream in a way. But it's pretty luxurious in a way. It's not. It's foreign, they're coming to a new country, or they're going to the south of France, some go to Belgium, Italy. But I think it was 2009, when you went to Cyprus, that just melts my mind, kind of that trip you did. As a 19, were you 19 or 18?
I was 19 years old, yeah.
Tell us about that, because I think it's such a good story for kind of younger riders to hear, of kind of, because people see you as a world champion, they see you as world number one. But if you go back to then, kind of that trip.
It still brings me emotion when I think about, because it's almost like a miracle to me. So that was maybe one of the huge like benchmarks of my journey, because I had to make a decision. I was going to my second year as under 23, so it was about time to chase that or not. I got a scholarship on a law school by that time through the sport, and I was riding for a local team, and was like the year before was the first year that I had a salary. So I was actually finally making some money out of it, but it was like really low, you know.
Just to survive.
It wasn't something like to think about living a whole life out of it. And I had to make a decision, and I tried to, you know, like to put all my coins into that trip. So I took every money that I had by the time, and I bought a ticket to Cyprus that was on Wednesday. I got in touch with the organizer of the Cyprus Sunshine Cup. There was this championship with 4 weekends of racing back to back. And I got in touch with him asking for some help with registration and so on. And he said, no, I can give you the registration, no problem. And I flew out on a Thursday. I got there on a Friday, late night into Saturday. And I would race on Sunday, the first race. And I flew out with no money on the pocket, like 100 euros ish on the pocket. And I booked a hotel with a full pension before I left on my father's credit card. And I thought, okay, I'm going to be fine. I have where to sleep and where to eat 3 meals a day. So I need to ride from 10 to 60 Ks. That was the distance to the race venues. So I need to ride, race, and go back. Maybe the ones that were like 60 and 40, 50 Ks away would be a little bit more challenging, but I can make it. And my goal was I need to go there and to fight the contract because I had no contract into that season. And then when I landed and when I went to check in into the hotel, the guy told me that there was a problem with my reservation and it got cancelled. So I had to, I freaked out because I didn't know what to do. I went back to the airport and I tried to change my ticket and the penalty to to pay for the date change was way more than I had. And then I had no option. I had to go back to the hotel and I booked it just one night. And then I thought the prize money was pretty decent for this race. And then I thought, okay, I need to ride into top 10 on every race because if I don't, I don't have enough to live out during the week. And I had to survive for 4 weeks. And that was every time later on when I had to face pressure, I always try to recall that feeling because I had nobody to share that. I didn't let my family know. I knew nobody by the time. And I had to deliver, I had to get a decent result, to get the prize money, and to pay, like food and accommodation for the week.
I just find it, I find it, moving in a way, imagining you being there on your own and the fear and the pressure. Because I think that's, you kind of go across and when you're living that, you have to put so much energy into the kind of what you've got to do to then have all that peripheral stress and then be able to deliver because you have to. It goes beyond doing it for something bigger. You're doing it to kind of get through the next day. But in many ways it feels that kind of for those first few years of your career, you were fighting a lot, kind of trying to kind of get up. But then what's really interesting at the same time, kind of from what I've seen and what I know, and this is what I'm interested, you felt a responsibility to kind of build cycling in Brazil at the same time.
Like the next chapter was I got a contract by the end of this trip to Cyprus. I got a contract to race for an European team based in Italy, and then I thought, okay, my problems are gone now.
It's gonna be easy.
It's gonna be easy now. But not. Was actually so hard. I tried that for 3 years, and I could never stand out. I was never delivering anything that would actually catch the attention or that someone that would understand about the sport would say, okay, this guy could be a top 10 or top 15 one day on an elite level. And by the end of the third year, I got no contract, and then I had to go back to Brazil. That was the Olympic year of London Olympics. And then for six months, I had no sponsor, no team, and I had to go back to Brazil. And I was doing the selection for the Olympics, and I came short, and I didn't qualify for London. And during this time, I was doing like local races, like just trying to win those races to pay my own job.
Yeah.
Like just to keep myself active. And then mid-season 2012 was another important moment on my journey when I signed with a Brazilian company. That company, it's a centenary company. It's called Caloi, and they were out of like the higher level bikes market for some years.
Yeah.
And then they were trying to like bring again carbon into the market as a national brand and all that. And they thought about, okay, maybe we should put someone to race on those bikes. And that's how it started, and was like amazingly good to the company. So the next 6 months, I remember when I signed to them with them was for something close to zero, but I saw the chance because the company was really big, and I saw the potential to do something nice. And then 2012, end of 2012 was okay, and then into 2013 it was actually another chance to make something happen, and I started like again going to the World Cups on my own. Like most of the races I was traveling was just myself. I was, for most of the World Cups or big races, I was going with like a backpack and maybe try to find someone to give me my bottles. I remember like this World Cup that I did with no external assistance, and I still rode into top 30, which is mind blowing. I mean, when I look back at this, there was some performance, but the desire to make this workout was so big. And then eventually people started like to recognize me.
Because that was 2013. So that kind of 2013. That's when you became one of the first Red Bull athletes.
Yeah. So by the end of this year was actually people kind of like clocked that I was there. I was still fairly young, like 24 years old.
Do you think people also seen the potential because they saw how much you were overcoming?
Like, they didn't know about that, but the first time that people heard about me was when I won a Bundesliga, a very traditional race in Germany. And I beat like a former world champ, Jose Hermida. And this guy was, he still is like such a legend in our sport.
From around here.
Yeah, he's from around the area here. And he was one of my biggest like references, like he was the guy that was, when I was looking the catalogs and magazines, he was always there.
Legend.
And like a few years later, I had the chance to fight against him, and I won this race, and then everyone kind of like clocked, okay, who's this guy? Like you don't win a race if you don't have the legs, if you don't have the potential. And then afterwards, I didn't have like many shots during the year, but the races that I had the chance, I was always trying to go big. So I was always like starting, I don't know, row 4, row 5. The starting position is quite crucial on big mountain bike races. And I was always like jumping to the head of the race, and try to stay with the big dogs for as long as I could. Yeah. So I always tried to absorb as much as I could, and I wanted to be part of that.
So you were just fighting the whole time.
Yeah, that was my thing, like I wanted to be one of those guys. Yeah. Like that was one of the first things that I put on my bucket list, was to be one of the guys. So I think until 2013, 14, that's when people started to know, okay, there is a Brazilian that races. Yeah. Okay, when I started like to ride top 30, top 25 at the World Cup level.
And then you flipped over not long after on to Cannondale and kind of moved into the big time in mountain bike world. And that must have been, I think for most athletes, they have a trajectory where they're quite accustomed to they kind of go up through the ranks of teams. Yeah. And by the time they get to kind of the world's best team, they know what it's like. But for you, I guess it was a bit of a shock when you got in there.
Exactly. when I stepped into like the team pits and the race service, it was kind of like I felt like not on that level, and I had a few like stars as teammates. It was like a huge opportunity to get into the team, but in a few ways, on the first 2 years, I wasn't really welcome. In a way, it was okay because they saw the interest. Okay, the Brazilian market is starting to go up, but sportively, I wasn't on the level. Like not sportively, not physically, but also not in terms of image. You know, like in terms of relevance inside the sport. So the first couple of years were really, really hard, and I tried to embrace it too hard. I remember I started the first season, 2015. I did some great races early on. Like I did great in Cyprus, and then I won Conti Champs. I won a few other races, and then when we were 4 weeks out to the first round of the World Cup, I went out for a training, and then I missed the corner. I hit the ground with my foot, and then I felt weird at the moment. And then I went back home, and I couldn't like stand on my feet anymore. And then I went to the hospital, got an X-ray, and there was a crack. And then I got so frustrated because they put a cast up to my knee. And I went back home. I was recently married by the time, and like we didn't have too many things in our apartment. And I went to bed, and I couldn't sleep. And then I woke up like on sunrise. I just went to the kitchen. I grabbed like a big knife and I cut the cast off. And I went out for 180 Ks, right?
Super sensible.
Yeah, like I wanted to fight so hard against everything that was holding me back. And it sounds heroic, but it was so stupid. And and then like the whole season I was struggling with these small injury. I could never really perform well. And the first 2 years I had like small injuries, and I always tried way too hard to go against those limitations.
When did you start to kind of let go and start fighting so hard? Because there seems to be like almost a direct correlation between that kind of paradigm shift in your performance. It seems, because physically it was always there, but then psychologically something happened.
Yeah, I think mentally, the mental side, it's always been my main strength, but also my villain in a way, my own villain. And going into 2017, like 2016 was super frustrating to me. I had the Olympics at home. I had like good legs, when I was training, like the numbers. When I was training with my teammates, I always felt like I was stronger than that, but I could never like translate that into racing performance. And when I went to Rio Olympics, I had listhesis when the disc in between the vertebrae slides.
Yeah.
So during the year I was fighting this injury, and then during the race at the Olympics, I had my paravertebral muscle stretched. So I had this muscular injury. And the whole experience around the Olympics was so heavy on me. Like I got so much shit from the Brazilians because after the race, I got the stretch. And once I stopped it, I couldn't move anymore. And once I crossed the finish line, and then the paramedics took me by a different way, and all the riders were going out of the course after the race through this pass and taking pictures with the crowd, and obviously I didn't take pictures with nobody, and they just crushed me, and it was so heavy because nobody knew about that, and I tried so hard to give my very best on that occasion. And on the same day, my very important person to me, my grandfather passed. So when I got back home, I couldn't walk, I couldn't ride my bike for the next 2 months, and I lost my granddad, and this moment was so heavy to me. I remember I had to lay down on my stomach because it was the only kind of position I could stand with the pain. And I remember thinking so much about what should I do, what is that enough, am I good enough? And then going to 2017, I was out of contract, and then Canon, they offered me a more limited contract, and they told me, okay, you have 3 shots for the year, 3 big races, and that's your chance to prove yourself.
Nice. Nice and relaxing.
Yeah, and then the first one was the Cape Epic. We did pretty well. We won the yellow jersey for 5 days, and then I had a stomach issue.
Everyone does at Cape Epic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did that. I got that.
Yeah. And then I kind of I cracked for 2 days with this stomach issue, and then we lost the yellow jersey, and was kind of it was good but not good enough. And then the next chance was a Marathon Worlds in Germany, and was a super fast rolling course, bit of a weird race. And I went to the race on my own. The team showed up the day before only, and for some reason I kind of I didn't perform well. The weeks before were quite heavy for any given reason, and after that race, I was really down and then I raced in March and I came short, and then I raced in June, was my second shot, and I didn't deliver again. And then I thought, okay, maybe that's it. That's the end of the journey to me as a top rider, or aiming to be a top rider. And then the next week, I started a World Cup in Andorra, and I was so in a way relaxed about the expectations on myself
at that point.
Yeah, I kind of okay, maybe that my thinking by the time was maybe that's the last one. Maybe I should enjoy it.
Yeah.
Maybe whatever happens, it's good. And then I started, and surprisingly, I started riding well.
Yeah.
And I was going up the field lap by lap, and at some point, I saw myself inside the top 10. And I hold my back so much on that race because I had amazing legs, but I was so scared of cracking, or doing something wrong. And I said, no, it's good. Just stay inside the top 10. You never touch the top 10. So I know, we were on a big group, fighting for the top 3. So it would be, it's a temptation, okay, maybe. Now I've been always so aggressive on racing, and that's the first day that I tried to hold myself back as much as I could. And then eventually I crossed the line in 10th, and it was so much of a relief to me. And after that, I ended up being lucky because both of my teammates, they're doing well. I was teammates with the French Max Marot and the German Manuel Fumisch by the time. And the team ranking is the sum of the 3 best riders. So once I finished inside the top 10, the team asked me to do some more World Cups than I would do. And then I was pissed for a moment because they didn't give me the shot before. But then I said, okay, I take the races, and then I prepared, and then I did quite well on those races again. And then was my initial third shot for the season was the World Champs in Australia. And before World Champs, we did a World Cup in Italy, in Val di Sole. And I had a mechanical early in the race, riding pretty well. I lost some time, but then I kind of recovered, and my last few laps were top times, like top 3, top 2 times. So it was kind of like a sign that I was good. I was spot on. And then after that, we would fly over from Europe to Australia, and was the first time that the team bought a business ticket to me.
All right.
And
it's happening.
we were flying business, like, so I felt like, wow, it's coming now, maybe something's happening. And then we were flying Emirates, I guess. And then the performance manager by the time, Phil Dixon, a Brit guy, he always had this rule, and he was so strict on that, to never ever touch the airplane food.
Oh, no.
And then, no, you never touch the airplane food, never, nothing. And then I got into the flight, and it was, 12, 13 hours flight.
Yeah.
And I was sitting next to Maho, and he was like one of the superstars in the sport, like so experienced. And then I thought, okay, but it's gonna be a long flight now, and maybe I didn't eat enough before. And then I saw him, asking for something from the commissar. And then I thought, okay, but maybe this Emirates, it's a good company, and
what could go wrong?
It's business. I mean, maybe I just asked for something simple, And then I asked for a chicken, and I had the chicken, and like half an hour afterwards, I had the chicken. I started feel so bad. It was actually very unlucky, because it's not like that.
That is very rare.
And then I went to the toilet. I wasn't feeling well at all. And I went to the toilet, and I started with some diarrhea. And then I went out, and the commissar, the flight attendant saw me, and she asked me if I was okay. And then I realized, okay, maybe I'm not okay. And then I was going to the toilet every 10 minutes. And then at some point I started puking so much. And in one of those trips, I bumped into Dixie. And he asked me, what's going on? And I said, I'm so bad. What did you do? I ate some chicken. He went absolutely mad about it. But it was a really long trip. I spent most of it on the toilet. And then we got to Australia. We still had 10 days-ish to the race. And the first couple of days I was on the bed. I did nothing, and just on coconut water, and tried to come around a little bit. And then around 6 days to the race day, we got back to training. And then Dixie told me, okay, you have good legs, and you are now maybe not on the best shape, but let's risk it, and let's try to push really hard until the race day, and to try to activate you. So I trained it super hard until the day before of the race. And then that was probably my first very high level performance. I finished 4th. I lost the medal. And looking back, if I had a little bit more experience on that day, I could be world champion. Huh. I was so strong, but I was still so respectful to the other guys. It was almost every time they pressed me on a corner or something like that, I would let them go, because I didn't see myself, okay, maybe that's not my place. Yeah. Not that was just in the back of my head, it's not that I was actively thinking about that. But I was way too respectful to those guys. The 2 guys that I was fighting with during the whole race were the last 2 Olympic champions. So, the very top guys, And I ended up fighting for the win. In the end, I made a few mistakes that were due to the lack of experience. But then after the race, I had the chance to sit down with my team manager, and then I asked him what's next now, and then he told me, I remember his words, he telling me, now I see you as a full-time World Cup racer. and then the only thing I asked was, okay, now I need a 3-year contract, and I asked for a value that was, from my point of view, was more than fair by the time. And then they tried to reduce it a little bit, and then I said, okay, I choose whatever I need to do as step-ups clauses, and if I do during the year, I step up for the next year, and so on. And they set like 3 levels, and I reached everything on the first semester of the first year of the contract. So and from there on, from that moment on, like 2018 was super special because was when I found balance.
Yeah. And then if we go to 2020, you were the rider with the most podiums in World Cup. And that's where I guess you really kind of came to the top of the sport and was by that point you were respected by everyone?
Not really, and it was very shocking to everyone, and at times it was, I always felt like I was the different guy. Even if I was one of the top guys. As a top guy, I was so different from the others because of my history, because of my background, because of how long it took me to get to my first decent result. So before me, nobody did that. Like before me, nobody won a World Cup race, and it wasn't like an under 23 winner. And I wasn't even like a top 10 rider as an under 23. And into elite, I wasn't like, nobody would say this guy has the talent or the skills to get to a top 10 level. And then when I started like to build on that and became top 3 and then top 2 and then eventually top 1, I think was so different to everyone, and especially like the media was always very interested about my story because I think I had to face so many different challenges during my life and journey that I wasn't like scared. At this point, I wasn't like scared of anybody, or I wasn't scared about like saying something about this guy or that guy. So I always try to be very respectful above all to the sport. But I wasn't like a guy that would hold back words or stuff like that. So I think that during those years I was different in a way. I was in some like ways fresh for the sport.
Yeah. And then it's kind of, so this is, I mean, it's, as you say, you were 30 when you were world number 1. Was it 30? I think. Yeah, 30. 31. As you say, kind of, it had been such a long trajectory to get up there. And then coming into those early kind of 20, that's normally a plateau that people would then kind of hold for many years and kind of stay there. But you sort of made a decision, I think, in those early, you got there, and then you left Cannondale in 22. And in the meantime, I had mentioned mountain biking has boomed in Brazil. It's become something completely different to what it was. And so you've got these 2 parallel things going on, in the sense you've built this development team and this racing team, you've Kaloya coming back in, you've become this star in Brazil, and you were just kind of teetering there at the top. And then we get to 23, and what was it like going into 22, 23, and the kind of being at the top and then making the decisions you did, kind of?
Like from 2018 to 2020, I kind of like, I set the base to be relevant in the sport. So during those years, I started like to push and to boost the sport so much, especially in my country. So I was very, very active with sportive projects, with social projects, with content projects. I had my own TV show running for 4 years, so I was all over the world, always with my TV crew with me. So it was kind of like something. Everyone was trying to be protective, to protect their performance, and I was always like doing stuff and interviews and this and that. So there was always a lot of buzz around my schedule. But the positive side was that the sport was growing so much in my country that this gave totally different meaning for my career. So it's not like a guy getting there, it's a guy helping the sport to get there. So it was so special, but also added so much pressure on me, because every time I failed, it was bad for something much bigger than me.
That's what you felt.
Yeah. And that's the burden that I put on myself. And I know it's I think it's very dangerous when you take the external expectation and you put that into yourself. But there was also some sort of responsibility that I put on myself with all those projects, with all that, because I felt at this point the sport gave me way more than I ever dreamed, as a sense of achievement, but materially, in every way, in every way, I couldn't dream to achieve what I did. I think that sounds, like we hear that, but when I look to my story, it's
real.
It's I mean it. I still can explain how I achieved the things that I did achieve. And
so what did it mean for you then when you did become world champion?
The first time I became world champion was
the marathon 2018.
Yeah. Well,
but then cross country, that last one.
The first title was such a big thing to me, because it happened that the race was where I lived my last year in Italy, back in 2011.
Yeah.
And during this time, it's when I first almost had to quit the sport. So get back there in 2018, 7 years afterwards, I was the number 2 in the sport. I had won a World Cup that year already. I had a few World Cup podiums on that year, and to win a world title on that place, to me was such a reward for everything that I had to face. And honestly, from that moment, that was when I switched it to, okay, now it's enough for me, for my personal side, it's enough, and now I need to give back to the sport.
Okay.
So from that moment on, I think everything I was trying to do was more towards the sport than true personal interests and all that. And then 19 was great. 2020 was amazing. We never know what could be, but I mean, I was winning whatever race I started. It felt like I finally got to to a whole new different level. And from 2021 onwards was when I started to ask myself, am I doing the right things or the right way? Because in Brazil mainly, I became too important, I would say. So I was at times more important than the sport. So I was bigger than cycling in general. And that wasn't my goal. So I was always trying to kind of shift things, but obviously I couldn't always. And that's when I started to face also some other difficult situations on personal side. On the professional side was also not a great time to me, and that's when I started to taste the bad things on this high level sport. So those were years that hurted me quite a lot, mentally especially. And then end of 22, actually early 22, I was considering, okay, maybe I need to change why I'm doing that. Why I was on a very good contract. I was probably the best paid mountain biker in the world by the time, and people were happy even if I wasn't performing super well. They were still happy to pay me that because I was important for the sponsors, and I had a good fan base and all that. But I wasn't happy with myself anymore, with the way I was doing things or with the way I was feeling about what I was doing. And that's when I took the decision to ask to get released from my contract. And I asked to get released with no conditions. And when the news came out, firstly was very good to me because so many different brands approached me trying to sign me. And then I started asking myself, okay, but what if I sign with another big brand? And if eventually, which is going to be hard, eventually I get back to winning ways, what that's gonna mean to me and to my story? And the answer was always like nothing really special, like it's more of the same in the end. And then that was my main motivation to sign and to join my own project with Caloi and to have like a full Brazilian squad with Brazilian staff and riders. And it was like a near impossible mission to think about to win a big race. Then that was my goal with them. Even if almost nobody believed that, even people that hired me, they were very skeptical about it. But my goal was to win a big race with the brand and with the team.
And you won the biggest.
And I won the biggest, but it wasn't that smooth. Like the year was terrible in so many ways, like with injuries, sickness, and I had to face a different type of pressure that was, if the project doesn't go well, it's my fault. So I need to race and perform well, but I also need to do the backstage work with the sponsors and with the staff and organizing things. So that was by far the most pressure that I felt in my whole career. And I had some very nasty injuries with both of my knees. And then at some point, I didn't know if I would have to do surgery or if I would, recover from that. But I couldn't train properly. I couldn't do a proper block of training. And then I was so frustrated. But when we were 6 weeks away from World Champs, I started training well. I started doing a treatment for the knees, and it was going well. And then finally, I started responding okay to the training, and that's also a moment where my mind shifted because I had to look back to my own journey and calm myself, telling myself, okay, you are a guy that tried to get on a World Cup podium for 10 years before you finally got there. So just chill and do your work and wait until things come together and wait until things work out, because you know how to work hard. That's my thing. I can commit, but at times I just need to remind myself that I need to give the time. And then when we were 3 weeks away from World Champs, I felt okay. I'm actually feeling good now. And then looking back to my whole history, I sense, okay, it's something big. It's going to happen, and the only big thing that can happen now is that I'm gonna win a world title. And then for a week or so, I started reflecting what I would do after winning World Champs. So I tried to visualize myself, okay, I'm world champion now. What should I do? And the only reasonable feeling and answer that I got was, "You did enough. Like it's time to let it go. Like to do something different, to give space to the next generation, to give voice to other people and all the stories. You did enough." and I went to World Champs knowing that. Like the first person that I shared that with was my father. Was before I flew out to Scotland, and I told him about that, and he didn't share his thoughts. I just said, "I'm with you, whatever it is," and I told him, if I win, if I finish second and I lose by 1 inch, nothing happens. If I win, I take it as a sign that I did well and I did enough. And then eventually I won the race, and looking back was probably the best race of my life. The way I felt and how I was seeing things and how I was dealing with the whole race, it was something quite special. Quite special. 4 hours, 14 minutes.
That's amazing. So you knew, when you knew in the race that it was going to happen, was there a tranquility to it? Were you at peace? Did you doubt?
Yeah.
You were at peace. You didn't doubt your decision.
No, it was like every pedal stroke that I was giving during the race, and the more the race went on, I felt like I'm gonna win it, and then it's almost like I felt an authorization.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a believer, and it was almost like I felt like God was telling me, "Okay, you can stop. Like
you can let go now."
Yeah, you can let go. You really did enough. I'm showing you now that that's your right decision. And when I crossed the line, like my staff that knew me pretty well, knows me pretty well, they couldn't understand my feeling. It was almost like an end of great work feeling. Kind of like
I do know.
You don't even want to celebrate. You just want to sit down,
just lay in the grass
and enjoy. Exactly. And I sat down and I remember I went to doping control, and my physio, who is a good friend of mine as well, he was staring at me because he couldn't understand why I was so relaxed, because he saw me winning some other races, and I've been always like so energetic about achievements and all that, and I was so like, that's it,
just peace.
Just a very deep, peaceful feeling. So
and that, I mean, I find it, so that brings us to where we are now, because these past 2 years since then, what's led to you chasing this dream? This kind of, is this a gift to yourself in a way?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. One very important conversation that I had was after I won my second world title in Scotland. I phoned my coach, Bjorn Kafka, and I told him about the decision. I didn't at that point I didn't share with him, and I told him about the decision. And then I remember telling him, the only thing that breaks my heart is that the only missing point of my bucket list is that I didn't race on the road. That was my childhood dream. And I didn't give myself the chance, or because of my responsibilities or because of my contracts, I always kind of like left it aside. And maybe now I unfortunately I lost the time, and I'm stopping and all that. And I remember his answer was to don't think about it now. Like, you're retiring, that's your decision. I told him about a lot of other stuff, and he told me, I totally understand your decision now. So retire from mountain bike, take some time, take the time you need to take, and then you see. And if yes, great. If not, great as well. And I kept, like that thing on a draw. And mid 2024, almost like 10 months ago, I started like thinking about that, because I started like finally to get refreshed mentally, physically, and also I started like enjoying what I did. So only after I retired, I could value my achievements. Before, when I was racing, I couldn't.
You can't when you're
like
in it.
anything was never like good enough, or any result or any performance was never like something that I would look back and I would say, oh, I crushed it that day. And only when I retired, I could look back and really enjoy the stuff I did. And by enjoying the stuff I achieved, I also started thinking about there was this first dream, that I never tried. Like the first races that I was watching and dreaming to be part of was the Tour de France, the Giro d'Italia, the Volta a España, the Grand Tours. And that was something that I started like thinking, okay, maybe I am too old, but I should try. Like I should talk to a few people. And then I started like to get in touch with a few people that I knew from the industry, from the different teams and all that. And I spoke with Bjorn, my coach, and I kept that really underground, because I didn't want to create any expectations to absolutely nobody. So I didn't share initially. I didn't share with no friends, no family. I only, like I was checking out things. Maybe there is a chance, and and most of the feedbacks were pretty.
Like, you're crazy.
Like, I mean, it sounds good because it's crazy, but. A retired mountain bike with no experience on road racing at this age, mainly the age, like, and coming out from retirement, you're not training properly or not racing properly for a year, and now you want to get back on a different sport, be a newbie at 35, 36 years old. It didn't sound like very... it didn't sound great to most of people. But one of the talks that I had was with Factor, and for some reason, some people got really excited about it. And
I think because with Factor, kind of racing's in our DNA. We love racing, and I think we love racers. I mean, Rob Gatilis, who's the founder, he's a former racer. I'm a former racer, and I think we have nothing but respect for kind of what you're trying to do, because I think it's brilliant, it's exciting, and I think that's what it should be. And I think and we were talking this morning, and I was like, how are the numbers? And you were like, yeah, they're pretty good.
I mean, the numbers are good, but I also we talked about that earlier today. Obviously I need to learn how. So many things, but I know that the engine is still there. It's actually pretty damn good, I would say. But also on top of that, I know how to deal with a lot of situations. So I'm very new to a lot of stuff, but I'm very, very experienced for some other stuff as well. And the thing is that I feel that the pressure, it's just the pressure that I'm putting on myself to try to make this happen on a short period of time. But it's so exciting because win or lose, it still feels like something great to do.
Yeah.
And when I got here, and when I was on the plane, and when I landed, like my emotions and my feeling were so good, because from maybe more than 10 years or 15 years or never in my life I did something that was so much out of my heart, and because I wanted to give myself the chance. So I don't think I was never so kind to myself as I'm being now, giving myself this shot. So it is very good. It is very good to try it.
Well, I can say it's super exciting for us, and I think I got nothing but respect, because I think it's amazing, and I think for us at Factor we feel very honoured you're going to be racing with us, and I think for our team Factor Racing it's brought a whole new dimension to it, and I think it truly has. It's kind of given it a whole new purpose, and so thank you for believing in us.
Oh, likewise. I mean, I didn't speak to any other Continental team, because obviously the way I saw things happening was more like I need to just find a spot on a big team, and my ambitions on racing I put really low, because I didn't see myself getting into a World Tour team or a top Pro 2 team and having an important role on it, or a leading role on it. So I put my ambitions really low, and I just wanted to have the chance. So I wasn't looking for money. I wasn't looking for leadership or nothing like that. I just wanted the chance to experience how is high level racing. But then things didn't happen. I don't know why, the way I expected. And when you guys offered me this chance, this opportunity, a few things happened that threw me into this direction. So obviously it's my dream, but I think it had to happen this way. Even afterwards, like talking to some people, they said, I'm pretty sure you could get to this team or that team or this team. And for some reason I'm here, and for some reason I think I need to start here. And since I stepped into the company the first time, or had the first calls, was the only calls or people that I felt like good with.
That's
so
good too.
I don't know, maybe it's the mindset, maybe it's the energy, maybe it's the about like targeting the same type of goals. But I'm super happy to join this project, and all of a sudden I think it was something new to me, but also it became something new to the project.
Yeah, to all of us.
And I mean, I think we are all like having to face a new challenge.
All on the same journey
great.
now.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, thank you for today, Henrique, and it's going to be awesome.
Thanks, I appreciate, and I see you on the road.
See you on the road.